A bride still in her wedding gown stands trembling in a hotel corridor, her veil dragging across the carpet as she reaches for a door that will destroy her life. Hours after saying I do, her husband lies in a penthouse suite with another woman, the mistress he swore was just a colleague. The lace that made her feel like a princess now suffocates her like a shroud. And beside her, her mother grips her arm, watching the fairy tale collapse into ash with every step toward that door. For the groom who married her believing she was nothing more than a naive heiress to manipulate, he has no idea that the woman whose heart he is about to shatter holds the keys to a billion-dollar empire he will never touch. This is a story of a wedding night that became a crime scene, a mother who armed her daughter for war, and a bride who turned her white dress into a battle flag. The vows satisfied may be broken, but the revenge will be absolute. The ballroom at the Grand Plaza still glittered with 10,000 crystal lights when Rosalie first felt the chill. Guests laughed and twirled across the marble floor, their champagne flutes catching the golden glow of chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. The wedding had been perfect, cascading orchids on every table, a 12-piece orchestra playing her favorite waltz, and vows so beautiful that her father had wept openly. Rosalie had dreamed of this night since she was a little girl. She touched the delicate beading on her bodice, scanning the crowd for Roman's face. He had whispered something about a business call 20 minutes ago. Then 40. Then an hour. Her text sat unread. Her calls rang into silence. Helena appeared at her side, elegant and composed, but her eyes held something sharp. "Where is he?" Rosalie asked, her voice cracking beneath the forced smile. Helena did not answer. She simply held up her phone, showing the GPS ping from Roman's keycard. Penthouse suite. A room that was not theirs. By the time the last guest stumbled home, the cake stood untouched and the orchestra had packed away their instruments. Rosalie stood alone beneath the chandelier, her train pooling around her feet like spilled milk. Her husband had vanished on the night he vowed to stay forever. And somewhere above her, in a room she was never meant to find, the truth was waiting to tear her world apart. Rosalie checked her phone for the 15th time. The screen glowed with nothing but the time and a photo of her and Roman from their engagement shoot. No missed calls. No messages. No explanation for why her husband had vanished from their wedding reception like smoke through an open window. She moved through the thinning crowd with a smile plastered across her face, nodding at guests who complimented her dress, her vows, her choice in flowers. But her eyes kept scanning every corner of the ballroom. Every hallway. Every shadow near the bar where Roman had last been standing with a whiskey in his hand. That was 2 hours ago. The orchestra began packing their instruments. Waiters cleared half-empty champagne flutes from abandoned tables. The guests who remained were too drunk to notice that the groom had not returned for the bouquet toss, the cake cutting, or the first dance that never happened. Rosalie's chest tightened. She pressed her hand against her bodice, feeling the beating dig into her palm. Her breath came shorter now. She told herself he was handling business. She told herself he had stepped outside for air. She told herself anything except the truth her body already knew. Helena found her standing near the entrance, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "He is still not answering," Rosalie whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. Helena's expression did not soften. If anything, it hardened. She studied her daughter's face for a long moment, then reached into her clutch and pulled out her own phone. Her fingers moved with calm precision. "What are you doing?" Rosalie asked. "Something I should have done an hour ago." Helena lifted the phone to her ear. When someone answered, her voice dropped into a tone Rosalie rarely heard. Cold. Commanding. The voice of a woman who had built an empire from nothing and protected it with iron hands. "This is Helena Vaughn. I need a trace on all keycard activity under Roman Whitmore's name at this hotel. Every door he has opened tonight. Every floor he has accessed. Send it to my phone immediately." She ended the call without waiting for confirmation. Rosalie stared at her mother. "You think something happened to him?" Helena met her eyes. The silence between them stretched like a wire pulled too tight. "I think something is happening," Helena said slowly. But not to him. Rosalie opened her mouth to ask what that meant, but Helena's phone buzzed before she could speak. Her mother glanced at the screen. Her jaw tightened. Her nostrils flared with a single sharp breath. "What is it?" Rosalie stepped closer. "Mom, what does it say?" Helena turned the phone so Rosalie could see. The words on the screen were simple. Penthouse suite. Accessed at 10:47 p.m. Still occupied. Rosalie's stomach dropped. The penthouse was not part of their wedding package. It was not a room Roman had any reason to enter. Helena took her daughter's hand. Her grip was firm and steady. "Come with me." The elevator climbed in silence. Rosalie watched the numbers rise, each floor feeling like another step towards something she could not name. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished brass doors. A bride in white. A woman who should have been dancing with her husband right now. Instead, she stood beside her mother, ascending toward a truth that already tasted like ash in her mouth. Helena had made one phone call from the lobby. Within minutes, a member of the hotel's security team appeared with a master keycard and strict instructions to say nothing. The Vaughn name carried weight in this city. Tonight, Helena wielded it like a blade. The elevator stopped. The doors parted with a soft chime. The penthouse corridor stretched before them, lined with golden sconces and thick carpet that swallowed the sound of their footsteps. Rosalie's train dragged behind her, collecting dust and silence. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain her mother could hear it. They stopped in front of the double doors at the end of the hall. Helena looked at her daughter one final time. There was no softness in her gaze. Only preparation. "Whatever is behind this door," Helena said quietly, "you will survive it. Do you understand me?" Rosalie could not speak. She nodded. Helena pressed the keycard to the lock. The light turned green with a click that echoed like a gunshot. She pushed the door open. The suite was bathed in low amber light. Candles flickered on the nightstands. Rose petals were scattered across the floor, leading toward a king-sized bed draped in white linens. And there, in the center of that bed, was Roman. He was half covered by the sheets, his chest bare, his hair disheveled. His eyes went wide the moment the door swung open. His mouth fell open, but no words came out. Beside him, a woman sat up slowly. Dark hair tumbled over her shoulders. She held a champagne bottle loosely in one hand, the same brand Rosalie had chosen for their wedding toast. Her lips curled into a smile that held no shame. Nissa Delacroix. Rosalie had met her once at a company dinner. Roman had introduced her as a junior consultant. Forgettable. Harmless. Now she lounged in the bed meant for a bride, wearing nothing but the sheets and a look of cruel amusement. "Well," Nissa said, lifting the bottle in a mock toast. "The wife finally arrives." Rosalie could not move. Her legs had turned to stone. Her lungs refused to expand. She stood frozen in her wedding gown, staring at the scene that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Roman scrambled upright, clutching the sheet to his waist. "Rosalie, wait. This is not what it looks like. I can explain." But there was nothing to explain. The rose petals. The candles. The champagne. He had planned this. Rosalie's hand found the doorframe. She gripped it so hard her knuckles turned white. And still, she could not breathe. Rosalie waited for the apology. She waited for Roman to leap from the bed, fall to his knees, and beg for forgiveness. She waited for the tears, the excuses, the desperate promises that it meant nothing and would never happen again. None of it came. Roman sat up straighter against the headboard, the initial panic draining from his face. Something else replaced it. Something cold and calculated. He watched Rosalie standing in the doorway like she was a minor inconvenience interrupting his evening. Close the door, he said flatly. You are making a scene. Helena stepped forward, her voice cutting through the room like frost. My daughter finds you in bed with another woman on her wedding night, and your concern is appearances? Roman's jaw tightened. He glanced at Helena with barely concealed irritation. This was not how I planned for you to find out. Find out what? Rosalie's voice emerged as a whisper. She hated how small it sounded. Roman exhaled slowly, as if explaining something to a child. Rosalie, let us be adults about this. Our marriage was never about love. You knew that. I knew that. The only difference is that I was honest with myself. The words landed like a slap. Rosalie shook her head, her vision blurring. That is not true. You said you loved me. You proposed. You stood at that altar and made vows. I stood at that altar because it was the fastest path to a board seat at Vaughn Corporation. Roman's tone held no regret. Only impatience. Your family's company has been my target for 3 years. Marrying you was simply the most efficient strategy. Rosalie felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. The beating on her bodice suddenly felt like chains. Every memory of their courtship, their engagement, their whispered conversations in the dark twisted into something grotesque. Nissa laughed softly from the bed. She tucked her legs beneath her and tilted her head, studying Rosalie with open amusement. You really had no idea, did you? Nissa's voice dripped with pity. All those romantic dinners. All those pretty words. And you actually believed he meant them. Rosalie's hands trembled at her sides. Roman has been with me for 2 years, Nissa continued. I was there before you, during you, and I will be here long after you are gone. You were just the signature on a contract. Helena moved closer to her daughter, her hand pressing firmly against Rosalie's back. Steadying her. Anchoring her. Roman swung his legs off the bed and reached for his shirt on the floor. Go back to the reception. Smile for the guests. We will discuss the details of our arrangement tomorrow like civilized people. Rosalie stared at the man she had married. The man she had trusted with her future. The man who had looked into her eyes that morning and called her the love of his life. He was a stranger. He had always been a stranger. And she had been too blind to see it. Rosalie did not sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her childhood bed in her mother's estate, still wearing her wedding gown. The lace had torn somewhere between the hotel and the car. She did not remember how. She did not remember much of anything after walking out of that penthouse suite. Helena had driven her home in silence. No questions. No comfort. Just the steady presence of a mother who understood that some wounds needed air before they could be touched. By dawn, Rosalie's eyes were swollen and dry. She had cried until there was nothing left. Her phone lay face down on the nightstand where she had thrown it hours ago. She could not bear to look at the photos in her gallery. The engagement shoot. The rehearsal dinner. The picture of Roman sliding the ring onto her finger with that perfect, practiced smile. All of it was poison now. A knock came at the door. Helena entered without waiting for an answer. Her face was pale. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She held her phone in her hand like it carried a disease. There is something you need to see, Helena said quietly. Before someone else shows you. Rosalie's stomach twisted. She took the phone with trembling fingers. The screen displayed a social media post. Nissa's account. Posted 3 hours ago. The photo showed Nissa lying in the hotel bed, the white sheets pulled around her bare shoulders. Beside her, Roman's face was partially visible, his arm draped across the pillow behind her. Candles glowed in the background. Rose petals dotted the frame. The caption read, "The real wedding night." Rosalie's breath stopped. Below the photo, the comments exploded. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. The post had been shared across every platform, picked up by gossip accounts, screenshot and reposted until it spread like wildfire through dry grass. She scrolled with numb fingers. Imagine being the bride while this was happening. I would never show my face again. The wife must be so humiliated. Roman Whitmore really fumbled? Nah, he upgraded. Rosalie Carlyle is finished socially. Her name was everywhere. Her wedding photos had been pulled from the venue's page and placed side by side with Niss's post. Memes circulated within hours. A bride in white on one side. A mistress in bed on the other. The internet had turned her worst moment into entertainment. Rosalie's hands shook so violently the phone slipped from her grip. Helena caught it before it hit the floor. She set it aside and knelt before her daughter, gripping her hands firmly. Look at me, Helena commanded. Rosalie could barely see through the tears. They want you to crumble, Helena said, her voice low and fierce. They want you to hide. That woman posted this because she believes you are weak. Rosalie choked on a sob. Helena squeezed harder. Prove her wrong. 3 days after the wedding, Roman arrived at the Vaughn estate with a lawyer at his side. Rosalie watched from the window as his black sedan pulled through the gates. He stepped out in a tailored suit, adjusting his cuffs like a man arriving for a business meeting. No shame. No hesitation. He walked toward the front door as if he still belonged there. Helena intercepted them in the foyer. Rosalie descended the staircase slowly, gripping the banister to keep her hands from shaking. She had changed out of the wedding gown 2 days ago, but she still felt its weight pressing against her chest. Roman glanced up at her with a smile that made her stomach turn. You look tired, Rosalie. Have you not been sleeping? She did not answer. She could not trust her voice. Helena gestured toward the sitting room. Say what you came to say. Then leave. They settled into chairs across from each other. Roman's lawyer, a gray-haired man with cold eyes, placed a folder on the coffee table between them. He opened it to reveal a stack of documents thick enough to choke on. My client is prepared to offer a quiet resolution, the lawyer began. Given the circumstances, Mr. Whitmore believes it is in everyone's best interest to dissolve this marriage discreetly. Helena's expression did not change. And what does your client want in exchange for this generosity? The lawyer slid a single page forward. Rosalie leaned in to read the number printed at the bottom. $15 million. Her breath caught. Roman leaned back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other. Consider it a settlement. You pay, I disappear, and we both move on with our lives. No court battles. No tabloid headlines. Just a clean break. Rosalie stared at him. You cheated on me. On our wedding night. And you expect me to pay you? Roman's smile widened. I expect you to be smart. The prenuptial agreement your mother insisted on has a few interesting clauses. If this goes to court, I will make sure every detail of your family's finances becomes public record. Every investment. Every offshore account. Every secret your mother has buried. Helena's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I will drag the Vaughn name through so much mud that no amount of money will wash it clean, Roman continued. Shareholders will panic. Partners will pull out. By the time I am finished, your precious corporation will be worth half of what it is today. The room fell silent. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily, counting seconds that felt like hours. Roman stood, buttoning his jacket. You have 1 week to decide. Pay me, or watch everything your family built burn to the ground. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at Rosalie. I told you we would discuss this like civilized people. His voice dripped with mockery. Consider this the discussion. The door closed behind him. Rosalie's hands curled into fists. Rosalie sat in her mother's study, staring at the wall of family portraits that stretched from floor to ceiling. Generations of Vaughns looked down at her. Builders. Survivors. People who had weathered storms far worse than a faithless husband and his greedy demands. She did not feel like one of them. She felt like a fool. Helena entered carrying a leather-bound folder, the kind reserved for documents too important for ordinary filing cabinets. She closed the door behind her and sat in the chair across from he. Rosalie looked up, exhaustion pulling at every muscle or daughter. "I need to show you something," Helena said. "Something I should have explained before the wedding," in her face. "If this is another lecture about how you warned me about Roman." "It is not." Helena placed the folder on the desk between them. "This is the Vaughn Legacy Trust. The real one. Not the version Roman's lawyers think they understand." She opened the folder and turned it so Rosalie could read. The pages were dense with legal language, clauses nested within clauses, paragraphs that seemed designed to confuse anyone without a team of attorneys. Helena pointed to a section near the middle, highlighted in yellow. "Read this." Rosalie leaned forward. The words swam before her tired eyes, but she forced herself to focus. "Any spouse seeking claim to assets held within the Vaughn Legacy Trust must demonstrate a consummated and faithful union for a minimum period of 24 hours following the solemnization of marriage. Failure to meet this condition renders all spousal claims null and void." Rosalie read it again. Then a third time. She looked up at her mother. "Consummated and faithful for 24 hours? Helena nodded slowly. "Your grandmother wrote this clause 50 years ago." She had seen too many fortune hunters circle this family. She wanted to ensure that anyone who married a Vaughn had to prove their commitment before they could touch a single dollar. Rosalie's mind raced. The wedding ceremony had ended at 6 in the evening. By 10:47, Roman had already accessed the penthouse suite. By midnight, Rosalie had found him in bed with Nissa. Less than 6 hours. "He never met the condition," Rosalie whispered. "He never came close." Helena's voice carried an edge of grim satisfaction. Roman was so confident in his scheme that he celebrated before the ink was dry. He assumed the marriage alone was enough. He never bothered to read the fine print. Rosalie pressed her hand to her mouth. For the first time in days, something other than despair flickered in her chest. "He has no claim," she said. "None of it. The money, the board seat, the shares. He gets nothing." Helena reached across the desk and gripped her daughter's hand. "Nothing," she confirmed. "And now we make sure he knows it." Rosalie's fingers tightened around her mother's. The fool had outsmarted himself. Rosalie stopped crying on the 7th day. She woke before dawn, showered for the first time in 3 days, and pulled her hair back into a tight knot. She dressed in black slacks and a white blouse. No jewelry. No makeup. Nothing soft. When Helena found her in the study an hour later, Rosalie was already on the phone with the family's legal team. "I want a full forensic audit of every account Roman Whitmore has touched in the last 3 years, she said into the receiver. "Every transaction. Every transfer. Every receipt. I want to know where every cent went." Helena paused in the doorway. A small smile crossed her lips. The lawyers arrived by noon. 4 of them, carrying boxes of files and laptops loaded with financial software. They spread across the dining room table like surgeons preparing for an operation. Rosalie sat at the head of the table. She did not leave for 8 hours. The first irregularity appeared within the first 2 hours. A consulting fee paid to a company called Delacroix Strategies. $40,000. The invoice listed services rendered as brand development consultation. Rosalie stared at the name. Delacroix. "Pull everything connected to this company," she ordered. By evening, the pattern was undeniable. Delacroix Strategies had received 17 payments over the past 18 months. Each one approved by Roman. Each one buried in departmental budgets where no one would think to look. The total exceeded $400,000. One of the lawyers placed a document in front of Rosalie. Delacroix Strategies was registered 11 months ago. Single owner. Nissa Delacroix. Rosalie's jaw tightened. He was paying her through the company. It gets worse. The lawyer flipped to another page. 3 of these payments occurred after your engagement was announced. He used Vaughn Corporation funds to finance his affair while planning your wedding. The room fell silent. Rosalie thought of the rehearsal dinner. Roman had given a toast about loyalty and partnership. He had looked into her eyes and called her his future. And the entire time, he had been siphoning money to the woman he was sleeping with behind her back. Helena spoke from across the table. This is embezzlement. Corporate fraud. If we present this to the board will have no choice but to act, the lead lawyer finished. Mr. Whitmore's position becomes untenable. Criminal charges become possible. Rosalie gathered the documents into a neat stack. Her hands did not tremble. Her voice did not waver. I want everything organized by tomorrow morning. Every transaction. Every signature. Every lie he told with my family's money. She stood, pushing her chair back. Roman wanted to drag our name through the mud. Her eyes were hard as stone. Let us see how he likes drowning in his own. Helena watched her daughter walk out of the room. The girl who had wept in her wedding gown was gone. Something sharper had taken her place. Roman walked into the Vaughn Corporation boardroom like he already owned it. He wore his most expensive suit, a charcoal Tom Ford that Rosalie had bought him as an engagement gift. His hair was perfectly styled. His smile was perfectly rehearsed. He nodded at the board members seated around the long mahogany table, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries as if this were just another Tuesday morning. The seat at the head of the table sat empty. Roman glanced at it, then pulled out the chair beside it, settling in with the ease of a man who believed his victory was inevitable. I appreciate everyone gathering on short notice, he said smoothly. Given the recent turbulence, I thought it was important we discuss the company's leadership transition. The board members shifted uncomfortably. A few exchanged glances. No one spoke. Roman continued, unfazed. As Rosalie's husband, I believe I am uniquely positioned to guide this company through. The door opened. Rosalie stepped into the room. She wore a black tailored suit that fit her like armor. Her hair was pulled back sharply. Her face held no expression. She looked nothing like the trembling bride who had stood frozen in a hotel doorway 2 weeks ago. Behind her, Helena entered with 3 lawyers in tow. Roman's smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered. Rosalie. I was not expecting you. Clearly. She walked to the head of the table and remained standing. But since you are discussing leadership, I thought I should be present. Given that I am the majority shareholder. Roman's jaw tightened. Your mother holds the controlling shares. Not you. Helena's voice cut through the room. I transferred my shares to Rosalie this morning. Effective immediately. The color drained from Roman's face. Rosalie placed a folder on the table. Before we discuss transitions, I have something the board needs to hear. She nodded to one of the lawyers, who connected a phone to the room's speaker system. A recording began to play. Roman's voice filled the boardroom. Our marriage was never about love. The only difference is that I was honest with myself. Then Nissa's voice, laughing. Roman has been with me for 2 years. You were just the signature on a contract. The board members sat in stunned silence. One of them pressed a hand to his forehead. Another pushed back from the table as if the recording itself was contaminated. Roman shot to his feet. That was taken without my consent. It is inadmissible. It is. It is the truth. Rosalie's voice did not waver. She opened the folder and spread the documents across the table. Along with evidence that you embezzled over $400,000 to your mistress through a shell company. Every transaction. Every signature. All yours. Roman stared at the papers. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Rosalie leaned forward. You wanted a seat at this table, Roman. Her eyes were ice. Consider this your resignation. The boardroom doors opened before Roman could respond. 2 police officers stepped inside, their uniforms a stark contrast to the polished mahogany and crystal chandeliers. Behind them, a detective in a gray suit surveyed the room with calm authority. Roman Whitmore? The detective asked. Roman's face went white. He stepped backward, bumping into his chair. What is this? You cannot just walk in here. We have a warrant for your arrest. The detective held up a folded document. Embezzlement. Wire fraud. Misappropriation of corporate funds. You have the right to remain silent. The officers moved forward. Roman looked wildly around the room, searching for an ally. The board members avoided his gaze. Helena stood motionless by the window. The lawyers watched with detached professionalism. Rosalie. Roman's voice cracked. Rosalie, wait. We can talk about this. I will drop the settlement. I will sign whatever you want. Just call them off. Rosalie reached into the folder on the table and withdrew a single document. She walked toward him slowly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. This is an annulment petition, she said. It voids our marriage on grounds of fraud and failure to meet the conditions of the Vaughn Legacy Trust. Roman stared at the paper. What conditions? What are you talking about? Consummated and faithful for 24 hours. Rosalie's voice was steady. You did not make it 6. You have no claim to my family. You have no claim to my money. You have no claim to me. She pressed the document against his chest. Sign it. One of the officers produced a pen. Roman's hands trembled as he scrawled his signature at the bottom of the page. The ink smeared slightly. He did not notice. The moment he finished, the officers pulled his arms behind his back. The handcuffs clicked into place with a sound that echoed through the silent room. The boardroom doors opened again. Nyssa stood in the entrance, her face flushed, her eyes wide. She had clearly rushed over the moment she heard the news. Roman? Her voice pitched high with panic. What is happening? What did you do? Roman looked at her desperately. Nyssa, call my lawyer. Get me out of this. Nyssa stared at the handcuffs. At the police officers. At the board members who watched with cold disgust. She took one step backward. Nyssa. Roman's voice broke. Please. She turned and walked away without a word. Her heels clicked down the hallway until the sound faded into nothing. The officers guided Roman toward the door. He looked back at Rosalie one final time, his eyes red, his face crumbling. She did not flinch. She did not speak. She simply watched him disappear. Helena crossed the room and placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. It is over, she said softly. Rosalie exhaled slowly. The weight that had pressed against her chest for weeks finally lifted. No, she whispered. It is just beginning. Please subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story. Subscribe now.